good afternoon, and welcome to Tetewathá Partyline Talkshow. I'm your host, Lou Ann Stacey, and today is MCK Friday, and I am joined by Chief Lloyd Phillips as well as Chief Harry Rice. That sounds weird, Larry. I've known you a long time. Now to call you Chief, you know, just a little bit weird. How's it going, gentlemen? And how's it been the first little while of being on Chief and Council? And Harry, you're new, so we'll start with you.
Well, thanks for having us. Transition is going really good. I'm learning a lot. The other chiefs extended their hands out to anything I need. If I need any information or even a helping hand, they're more than willing to accommodate me at any time.
Oh, that's really good. How has it been? Like, what is it? Has it been like overwhelming stuff? Things you've known, things you're new to you, or?
I'd say half and half. I knew a lot of stuff that was going on. A lot of the stuff that's coming up is not, I wouldn't say too overwhelming, but there is a lot of information that I have to learn. Especially yesterday, we went to SOD, and which I can't even remember the acronym of it.
SOD, that's a strategic operational development.
Okay.
There's a lot of information. It was an information overload yesterday. I'll be able to
handle it.
Yeah, so once we get going, it'll smoothen itself out, so to speak.
Lloyd, well, you've been on council before, so for you, how's the transition and how is this orientation period going? Is it a little bit different than in the past?
It's certainly a little bit different. I mean, I'm much more obviously aware of the structure of MCK and the departments and a lot of the personnel. But still, not being on council for a few years, I mean, things do change.
Yes.
Personnel change, some of the policies and procedures. So it's good to get the updates, but also it also serves as a good reminder of the amount of work that has to take place in our community, whether that be operationally, on day-to-day departments within the community, or whether that be the more strategic political issues that we have to deal with. So it's a good reminder, and it helps you I guess focus some of your thinking on some areas that you may want to concentrate on in the next 3 years.
Okay. In terms of working with the new council, how has that been? Because that's a little bit of a change, too. I know some you've worked with, some you haven't.
Yeah, I worked with Lindsay years ago, 12 years ago or thereabouts, and Mike DeLille for a number of years. But now there's a few others, which is good. And part of this 2-week period or thereabouts, it's also a time for us to get to know each other a little better. I knew Harry this all my life, but we've been
in other areas.
Yeah, in other areas,
right?
Different ways. But I mean, to actually be a colleague now and working together in the next few years, it's good to get to know somebody on a more of a personal level. Some of the way he's thinking, his thoughts. Same thing for Tanya and Ross. We had some good discussions, and I'm sure we're gonna have much more as time goes on, and help to solidify more of that really a good team approach. I think we have a good set of council chiefs, and I think we could accomplish a lot in the next 3 years if we keep focused.
Okay, Harry, what was your experience like working on with this team, new group of people?
Well, like I said, everybody was genuine. Everybody's extending their hands to give help when needed, if needed. I've already asked for help on a couple of different situations, whether it be something real political or just a question about council itself, and the guys and girls are more than willing to answer me, sit down and answer, have a good conversation. So in that way, I'm really enjoying it. Genuinely enjoying it. It's like meeting a new family. Like Lloyd said, he said we knew each other since we were this big, but we were friends, but we were never close. Yeah. And now I think we're gonna become closer, and I feel that way about all the chiefs that are on. I think I'm gonna have a better relationship with all of them as the time goes on.
I think it's an interesting mix of people, and I think that is really going to help be able to broaden the scope of what MCK has to handle on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because we're like a reflection of the community. Like we have people from different age groups, different levels of experience, We all walk in different circles in the community, so to speak. So if you bring the 12 of us together, and that you're kind of representing the general community as a whole, because each of us have our own perspectives and views, and we all represent a certain voice that we hear in the community. So I think that's a positive thing that we're diverse. But just to add on to what Harry was saying, and it's also important, to get to know each other again more on the personal level, because as time goes on, obviously there's a lot of hot topic issues in the community, a lot of controversial issues that we have to deal with, and we're not always going to see eye to eye. I mean, and that's just the nature of the way it is, and that's a good thing sometimes, because you need to have that debate around the table on what you view as right or wrong, and that's good, as long as it's done in a respectful way. But if you're able to know somebody more on a personal level, that helps that dialogue, move forward, and ultimately it benefits the community, because all the voices are heard equally around the table.
One of the first things that I said at the table on the Tuesday after the elections is that it's obvious that I have the least amount of political experience at the table. I am going to be asking questions. I'm going to be quiet for the first little while, but once we get rolling, I'm going to be asking questions, and I expect everyone to lend a helping hand when needed, if needed. And like I said, everybody's more than willing. But it's the first thing I said to everybody, and everybody kind of like, yeah, Harry, all right, we got you. It's comforting to know that they have my back also. We're not just here as individuals. They actually have my back. So it's comforting that way too.
But I liked what Lloyd said, and to me, I think it's an important piece. And in this community, we have so much trouble with it, is with regards to conflict and having decide things that we have different views on, and not being able to express those views, because right away, people are ready to go do something vigilante instead of sitting down, talking. Let's have this dialogue. Out of that chaos usually comes creativity. It's a science, and it's proven.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with having different points of view, and to have that respect, because that is the best dialogue, and from there will probably come even a better answer.
Exactly, because sometimes you obviously you have your view, your perspective, and I guess interpretation of whatever the issue may be. You bring that to the table, and you have that discussion. But then Harry come there with his view and his opinion on certain things, which may not be exactly what I want, but if I listen to him and he listens to me, then say, I could modify my approach or the way I view things, because I didn't consider what you brought.
Absolutely.
And vice versa. So that's the way it should work. And
absolutely. And it's not like groupthink, because I think groupthink for any group is probably the worst thing that can happen, because if you have all like minds, then you're just a processing thing. Yeah,
and I know obviously council gets criticized a lot, which is expected and is the norm. But one good thing about council is we don't have the political parties as they do on the outside. Because you mentioned way everybody thinks the same.
Yeah.
In a political party, if you belong to Liberals or NDP or wherever you may belong to, you're expected to pull the party line. And when the leader says, no, this is the way it's going to go, you're expected to fall in line. If you don't fall in line, you can get booted out of their party, which I think is not conducive to a good debate. No. But in council, we're all individuals.
Absolutely.
And we're all individuals. We all have our own view and our own opinion. And at the end of the day, if it comes down to a vote, which I don't like ideally, but come down to a vote, if I'm yes and his no, so be it. We move on, next topic, because
there's always going to be that next one.
Always going to be the next one.
Hopefully, we won't hold the grudges.
But I think it's important as leadership to be able to recognize that process, because within the community, we're not allowed to do that. You can't have a different opinion, because right away you get that different opinion, then you're labeled as something else. And we need leadership to be able to lead by example, so to say, and I think one of the things is which I like about this particular council, is that there's different people who are attached to different groups. And I got that from doing the interviews. You know, and I think that's going to diversify too. So you're going to have a little bit more perspective than has been in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And each council, I mean, I've been I've been involved for a while, and even before we used to have 2-year terms, so the changeover was more frequent. But every council brings something unique to the community, and as this council, like I said, I'm very optimistic coming up in the next 3 years, because you see a lot of challenges that are going to be facing our community, either on a local level or provincial or national level. And I think if everybody, as I said during my campaign, everybody has a role to play, and if we all have a role, we all get involved, we'll move things forward.
Okay, guys, we worked our way to our first break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Tetewathá Partyline Talk Show. I'm your host, Lou Ann Stacey, and joining me today for MCK Friday are Chief Harry Rice and Chief Lloyd Phillips. I wanted to ask the question in terms of portfolio assignments, like when is that going to happen, and what basically is the process for that? Well,
the portfolios are going to be, I guess, officially decided in the coming, say, roughly 3 weeks, because we want to finish off a good level of orientation first and foremost, from the operational perspective, but then also have a good updates and discussion on what are some of the political issues that are facing the community, and at least that way everybody has a baseline information on everything before you say, all right, I'm interested in this file, or I'm interested in that file, and then we have that discussion. I mean, there is no exact process per se to say about giving out portfolios. It's first and foremost, it's based on level of interest. I mean, a person has to have a strong interest in a certain area to actually help move it forward, and have that passion behind it. And then also, then you look at people's experiences and knowledge that they bring to help support that portfolio. And if there's more than 1 or 2 people that are interested, then that discussion takes place, and usually there's a compromise made. Rarely does it ever go to saying, "Oh, I have to vote at the table, who gets it, whatever," and that's something I would like to avoid. But this year we're looking more of creating a team approach versus like individual portfolios, and on certain files like intergovernmental team and a local team dealing with internal issues, and more of a team approach. And sure, you can still have somebody take a lead on something, but if you work more as a collective on a day-to-day basis, again, I think that will help move things move it along much quicker.
And we're going through next week. We're going through doing an orientation about set portfolios. Okay. So housing is going to be part of the portfolio that we're going to learn and understand to a whole. Yeah. And then sports and rec unit and education and lands and housing. We're going through all of that. We met all the units in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but next week is now we're gonna understand what's going on and how they actually run. So that's our orientation for the next couple of days, actually, starting Monday.
So, and it's a lot. There's a lot of responsibility that the council are responsible for, right? In terms of portfolios.
Exactly, as the portfolios and. Some are more hands-on than others, because as you know, we have people working in various files and working for the community, and their managers and directors and stuff for different units, which you're mostly there more of an oversight and to make sure that the direction is being followed, the council's direction or community direction is being followed, but some are more hands-on, where it's an active file, like lands, for example. It's a developmental department. It's very political, so there's much more need to have almost a day-to-day involvement in something like that.
Okay, now I understand. That's why I figured let me ask, because I think it's important that people understand how this process comes to be and how people get chosen for it. And I'm curious to see, because I think the team approach on some of those portfolios probably makes a lot more sense than one person carrying.
Yeah, because sometimes if somebody's not available for one reason or another, and if you have more of a team approach, it could help. Well, if I can't make it today for whatever reason, well, you have 1 or 2 or 3 others who can make it. So you're not holding things back, and you can move together. Plus, you have more of a strategy or a policy review that can happen much quicker if you have that team approach.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that Lloyd gets asked the same question too as you just asked.
Yeah.
What are your portfolio? What's going to be? When are you getting them? Like on a daily basis, more than 5-6 times a day, we get asked like same question. Oh, so what portfolio are you on? Like, try and get this one, do that. And, I got approached not even 12 hours after I got in council, and the guy was not demanding, but you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. I'm like, dude, I wasn't even, it's not even 12 hours yet. But he was there mostly to congratulate me, but I found it humorous that it's starting already. So, but
it goes to show that the community is interested, and I have to say, throughout the years, there seems to have been more of an interest the last couple of years that people are concerned about many of the issues that are facing us today. Yeah,
and exactly, and that's a challenge that the council is gonna have to face even more in the next few years because of the. It's been a while, but more development of like social media and all these other platforms and stuff, and people are more aware. But that also people are more aware. That means they want more questions and more answers. So we're gonna have to find ways of community engagement. We have many ideas. We had they've been in development for many months, but some things that will be rolling out through our communications department on how we could better provide information, but also receive it.
Yes.
When community meetings is one aspect, and it's always a contentious issue during campaigns. But I like to also have a smaller focus group area. If I'm sitting down with individuals and there's 5, 6, or 10 of us in a room, I can give information and receive feedback much more directly, much more clearly, and I think overall something like that would help the process much more, rather than sitting across the room and somebody raises a point and you raise a point back and you're almost debating in public. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but when you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, I'd rather have that smaller group setting where we could have that really constructive dialogue.
I'll ask both of you this, and because for me, I think it was a pivotal thing that happened in our community, was with the building of the cultural center and the space location. And I think that raised a lot of good points in the community. And, people say, oh, it's a bad thing. And I didn't see it like that. I saw it that, for one, people were concerned, and people support the culture and language. That's not the question. The question was location. People started talking about the environment, but I like the process where they brought people together and had an opportunity to talk. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't happen often. It's usually us against them. And basically that's what happens in the queue. So coming up with a strategy to engage the community, talk about transparency. That is a top thing that was, people were asking, how are you going to be more transparent? And what's the difference between transparency and secrecy? Mm-hmm. Because people don't understand, or even confidentiality. Yeah. And what are the difference between the three? And as a council, how do you operate with being a leader, but at the same time open to being transparent?
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance there. I mean, the issue of confidentiality again has always been an issue in various forms of various elections and stuff. But what I could say clearly and with confidence is that regardless of confidentiality, there was never a time I wasn't able to explain to a community member or tell a community member what is happening, and it never stopped me from doing that. And if it ever did stop me, and then I would have an issue with it. But to date, and it's never been an issue. And also sometimes you have to understand, like even on this radio or in certain public forums, as a council, we can't say as much as we want to at times. So sometimes people say, "Oh, they're not saying everything." Well, it's not because I don't want to tell the community members. It's because I don't want the outside to hear what we're talking about. Yeah. And I'm sure as we speak today, they're listening to what we're talking about. So certain things we shouldn't say, but if I'm talking to you one-on-one or in a community meeting or a focus group, sure, let's talk. I'll tell you everything you need to know or everything you want to know.
And that makes a lot of sense. Harry, how is it in your mind? Like, how do you see it? Because I'm sure people are asking you, are you going to be transparent?
Yeah.
Because you're new.
Yeah, of course. Everybody's listening right now waiting for me to mess up. I believe that I'm able to talk with my friends, and I talk with my friends, and I give them information that's all out there on the table. I don't feel a need to hide it. If, like he said, if anybody wants to talk to me, come directly to me and talk and ask me a question, and I'll give you as much information as I can. If I don't have the information, I'll find out the information for you, or I'll lead you in the right way. I'm talking like a true politician now, but but that's just how it works.
Yeah.
If I don't have the information,
Can't give you what you don't have, right?
I can't. I'm not going to make anything up. So in that way, there's a couple of things that are on the table that I feel that I want to tell people, but I can't yet.
Yeah.
So it's not a question of confidentiality. It's letting the community know at the right time what needs to be said or what needs to be done.
Yeah, because you don't want to bring information out to the community that's the whole saying they're half baked. There's a fine line with saying you want to be able to have enough information to have a constructive dialogue in the community, but you don't want to get so much information where people are going to say, oh, it's a done deal now, and look, they already made a decision. So where's that balance? And that's always a judgment call, but also you don't want to bring something out to the community where it's too premature, that there's so many questions being asked and you don't have the answers yet. Exactly. So where's that line? Mm-hmm. I think every file or issue is a little bit different, but it's always a judgment call, and that's, I guess, where that's where council has a discussion and say, at what point do we bring this out to the community? It's not a matter about being secret. It's like you also want to be able to provide the proper information and have the proper answers. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess if we get back to the small groups or focus groups on certain topics, to me that makes sense, because you can have that open dialogue that's needed without being in the media or. Right. Yeah,
exactly, and that's something, like I said, that was one thing I mentioned prior, but also now, and it's being developed, and when are these appropriate? When would be a good time? We don't need not a major expense. We have a council meeting room downstairs. It could be 1 or 2 chiefs, 5 to 10 or community members. Maybe people who you feel comfortable with, if say, Lou Ann, if you had an issue you want to talk about.
I want a new baseball field. No, I'm just kidding.
No, if you want to talk, whatever the topic may be, and say, fine, whoever's in charge of that area, say, well, because not everybody wants to get up in public and make big speeches and stuff. Yeah. Some people like it and want that. That's fine, but not everybody's like that. But you may want to come with 5 or 6 of your family and/or friends and have a discussion with a chief or chiefs where you feel comfortable sharing your views. And I think, like I said earlier, I think something like that is more valuable for the community member and more valuable for the council.
Okay, that makes sense. If you're just joining us on K103.7, today is MCK Friday, and we're talking to Chief Lloyd Phillips and Chief Harry Rice. I wanted to talk a little bit about the current state of affairs within the community, and we can talk at any level. Want to start locally and see some topics maybe we could talk about, because there's lots.
Want to start with the baseball field?
Let's get my baseball field. Terry Stacey better be listening. I'm lobbying now.
I don't know if I'm allowed to divulge this information, but I will. I know it's in the works that we're supposed to relocate a baseball field up to the arena and redesign the 2 soccer fields to accommodate night games.
Nice.
So there'll be lights up there for the baseball field. It'll be big enough for the older kids to play 300 yards.
The regulation
baseball field, and move the soccer fields to accommodate the lights. So it's on that part, it's looking good. When it's gonna happen, I don't know, but I know it's in the works. I spoke to a couple of people, and they almost reassured me that it is a goal. They just have to wait for the finances.
Boy, I'm glad I brought up the baseball field. Just kidding. So I guess let's get into some of the more heavier things and talk about the housing thing. I know you can't divulge the information going on, but how does stuff like that happen?
Good question. And as a new council chief and a former council chief, I asked myself the same question: how did this happen? Because just as much as community are perplexed and PO'd, believe me, it's twice for people who are in council, because we make the question, but we're also being asked for answers and so on. It is being looked at and being internally, but we're also going to be bringing in an external firm to assist in making sure everything is looked at properly, and answers are given. As a matter of fact, this today there was another release that Paul Rice, who's leading it, put out, explaining that to the community that every single person who's involved with housing as a community member has gotten a letter and notice. Each file is being reviewed to ensure it's up to date, and if there's any discrepancies, well, then they'll deal with that one-on-one and so on. So, but yeah, it's certainly something that gives a black eye to the community and to the MCK, and we have to ensure that how this happened or why it happened is addressed, and ensure that stuff like this does not happen again. And I guess that's in the easiest way of putting it, right? And if whoever's accountable is accountable.
What happens, happens.
Exactly.
Right? I guess the other issue, and just to spread it a little bit on the housing thing with the shortage, because that seemed to be a topic that almost every candidate brought up, is the concern for a lack of housing in the community. I know Martin LeBourne and Bobby Patton were in and talking about some ideas, and I think that's something else, because housing's a big thing here. It wasn't just the issue, it's also this.
I believe that MCK and Housing Department is working on making another sixplex out on the new development area, and a couple more of I can't remember the acronym, the Build to Equity.
Oh, okay.
I believe there's a couple more of those coming up. So there is going to be some some chances for single parents or families to get into that housing program on that part, and I really like the Built to Equity. I don't know the political part of it, but where you pay, they're in there for 3 years and they save you money, and then you have the money to build your house. I really like that idea. I thought it was a good idea from the start, and I'm hoping that we're going to be building some more of those homes.
Yeah, and housing, and I guess, like you mentioned earlier, Lou Ann, out of controversy or out of negative, sometimes comes positive.
Absolutely.
And housing being the topic right now, now is a perfect opportunity to revamp the entire the whole programs and the services, what's there, the dollars that are allocated, and look at the multitude of options. There's existing programs and services that we have, but there have been discussions about building a condominium style. There's about maybe increasing the amount of loans available to the community to be more competitive against the Caisse Populaire and other banks. Other ways to help people who are struggling to get a home or get a nice apartment. So there's a lot of ideas out there. And I think due to this current controversy, a lot of positive things will come out of it in not the long run, but in the next couple of years or even less, to say this is how we think it's going to be moving forward to address a lot of the shortages.
Okay. Another topic, membership. Where do you think that's at? Because that's a big one. That one doesn't go away. Harry? No, just kidding. We'll put the new kid on.
Which part of membership do you mean?
Well, I mean, just it's gone to its law. I guess we're close. And I guess, what is the impact of that, and how do we get this resolved? Because membership affects everything else. Yeah.
It's a broad topic to talk about in specific. I'm not really sure what part of the membership you want me to talk about.
Well, I guess just about the law, applying the law. How does it affect us?
Yeah, well, I'll just jump in for a second there, and the law has been finished through the process. It's been enacted, and now the law is there. Now it comes the point of implementation of the law, and there are several things that still got to be developed. One being the how it's going to be enforced through the Court of Kahnawake and things of that nature, but also. For people who are entitled to be registered, and there's some implementation that's happened there. So if somebody, it's clear that they should be registered, they should be on the KKR. Great. Let's get all those pieces in place as soon as possible, so that people who have been waiting since the suspension of the Council of Elders, can really receive the full benefit that they're entitled to, or recognition, I should say, of what they're entitled to. So it needs to be implemented over a period of time. They want to move as quickly as possible, but also be careful at the same time. Yeah. Then also dealing with the outside, because we always have this Indian Act that's out there, and which is in great contradiction to what Kahnawake has decided on who is a member of a community versus what somebody gets Indian Act status, and they're two separate things. And if wherever I think people's view on membership in general is. I think one thing we could all agree on is it's up to Kahnawake to decide who is a Mohawk or Kahnawake, not up to Canada and the Indian Act to decide who's a Mohawk or Kahnawake. And there's a lot of work happening, and it has to continue to happen, where we can make that separation much more clear. Basically, work to try to get the federal government out of the business of giving status to people who, in our opinion, don't deserve to have that status. Because now with recent laws that have changed with Canada because of court cases, S3, and there was several others over the years, and there's probably a couple in the hopper right now. The interpretation of what a status Indian is and who is entitled to it is getting broader and broader and broader, to the point that the fear is it's basically going to water it down to a point that status doesn't mean much to anybody. If Canada wants to continue doing that, that's their business, but that should impact the business of Kahnawake, and we'll determine who is and who isn't.
And that's going to be an uphill battle for sure, right?
It's been a battle since at least 1981 when the moratorium first kicked in until now. It's been an ongoing battle. It's going to be a challenge, no doubt, but we have to keep. We have to keep at it. We have to keep fighting. We have to keep arguing, and sometimes we take some small steps to get where we got to go. Other times it's larger steps, but we have to keep moving to ensure that at the end of the day, the law is fully respected, fully enforceable, and recognized.
The rumor is that the Canadian government is giving us or telling us that there's going to be about 15,000 new members to Kahnawake. Where are we going to put them?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean,
and then that bleeds out a lot of our finances, resources. No.
But they didn't attach dollars to these bringing people back, did they?
No, they never do.
No. On that note, guys, let's take a break and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Tetewathá Partyline Talk Show. I'm your host, Lou Ann Stacey, and joining for me for MCK Friday is Chief Lloyd Phillips as well as Chief Harry Rice. And prior to going to break, we were talking about the membership thing, and you were saying something else, and I kind of threw you off, and I just want to wrap that part up so we could get on to some other topics.
I just mentioned that the government wants to give us or throw at us another 15,000 members, and it's going to eat up our resources. First of all, where are we going to put them?
Right.
They're going to move to Kahnawake? I don't think so. We have to be vigilant on that part and continue to fight for our rights. And then if they do implement it, they're going to eat up some of our resources, our education fund, our sporting funds, our welfare funds. And then what? Then we have nothing. So we have to be very vigilant on containing that.
Yeah. So I guess I think I'm not sure how familiar Harry would be, but I know you would be. What about issues provincially and nationally that are going on? You know, how does those impact? And we talked about Indian Act because I watched the recent AFN news releases and seen some interesting stuff. But this Indian Act and the government telling the communities what they're going to do seems to be front and center.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the Indian Act has been in existence, since it was 1876 or thereabouts, and had different modifications over the years. But the ultimate driving force behind it is there's a level of control that the federal government has over First Nations, whether that be through legislative means or whether it be through financial means, and it's always been a struggle to get out from underneath that, as we say. It's easy to say, get out of the Indian Act, but then the question always comes next is like, well, if we're going to scrap that, and then what replaces it? Because with all the negatives, and I'll say 90% of it is negative with the Indian Act, but there's a few portions in there, mainly like the tax exemption, Section 87, and a few others that are of benefit to our people and to our community. And if we're going to scrap the whole Indian Act, what is it? What's going to replace it, and what's that going to look like? So those are some major topics that, again, we've been constantly working on various levels for at various times, but also looking at what are the governmental policies,
right,
that are out there that guide the negotiators on the other side of the table? Sometimes, as we've been seeing more and more, it's become much more clear over the past several months into a year, like with Prime Minister Trudeau and his wants to talk nation to nation and reconciliation, and he's talking about he has no more important relationship between to him is First Nations and the government. All those words have to have meaning,
right.
And now we're seeing more and more. He's just repackaging old rhetoric and old policies, and take off a word and put reconciliation, and change a word and put nation to nation, and then but the intent behind it didn't change.
Right.
What we need to do is push to have the intent change so that we can continue, the dialogue moving forward, because. Council certainly ain't gonna go off that buffalo jump, as they say. We have to keep dialogue. We have to keep dealing with them. We have to keep the community operating and running on a day-to-day basis. But we're not gonna cut off our nose just by our face, because some of these agreements that they want to put forward, or self-government type agreements that they have, will never be accepted by our community. Because a lot of them talk about extinguishment of various rights, surrenders, and words like that, which I don't think there's a word for it in Mohawk, and it ain't gonna happen, under our watch.
Okay, Harry.
He said it all.
But I guess it's important to know, because a lot of people are up these days on what is happening with the government relations.
Yeah. Myself, I'm a big advocate of reconciliation, and I know a lot of people in Kahnawake think it's a bad word. I'm at the place where I don't believe in reconciliation between government and our people, or any Indigenous people across Canada. The part of reconciliation that I'm a big believer in it is the understanding, having reconciling with the non-natives outside of our territory, bring them in and have them understand what we're about. That's where the reconciliation that I'm a big advocate with. I don't believe that the Canadian government is ever going to reconcile with us, or especially now the Quebec government, never going to reconcile with us. They'll throw bits and pieces just to make us believe that they are, and the words from Trudeau throw them out the window. But the part of reconciliation that I believe in is between nation to nation. Even us in Aguasasne, us in Gunasabalge, that's the reconciliation that I believe in, that we have to come together as one. The government, I don't think it'll ever happen with that.
Yeah, and it's always a challenge, as you know. And like I said, sometimes we have to make understandings or agreements with government. But you always got to be careful, because you're not, like I said, you're not going to jeopardize your rights. But there's so much happening on the outside.
Yeah.
Laws are changing, laws are developing, so we have to be out there and active and at the very least neutralizing what's coming down the road, or if they're passing laws, make sure it doesn't apply to our community. And so there's a lot of work that has to happen on that end, because if we don't engage or if we don't go out there, they're going to keep moving regardless.
Yeah.
And it's in our best interest of the community for us to be out there and trying to advocate and push and defend the rights of our community. Because the way that the government views it, and the Quebec government included, when they pass laws, it applies across the board in Quebec. The Quebec government, they don't say it applies in Quebec except for Kahnawake or this and that, unless we're able to work something out where it clearly stipulates, no, it doesn't apply to First Nations, or it doesn't apply to Kahnawake. And those have been some successes over the years, and those are things we're looking forward, in the coming years. And that's one area. My previous employment with council as a advisor technician to council, I've been involved with the Quebec files, so I'm quite aware of what's happening and where we need to go. But one thing I would say, to summarize really in a nutshell, because I know we don't have much time, but the stuff that impacts our community on a day-to-day basis, whether that be health issues, whether that be social issues, even taxation issues, whatever, that's primarily dealing with the province.
Yeah.
Longer term stuff, lands, membership, stuff of that nature is provincial, and some are overlapped. But the day-to-day stuff that impacts us most, it has to do with the province. That's why we have to have call it QKR, Quebec Kahnawake Relations Tables, because again, we have to find ways to support the direction of the community, to advance our community, and work out various ways of how a law will not impact our community, or how a Kahnawake law will replace it. And that's the area, obviously, I have a fair amount of knowledge in there, and my interest lies in that area. And because you're able to see it takes time sometimes, but when you do have a success, you can see the trickle down, all the way into the community, where it becomes a very positive thing. And one, for example, we're very close on is youth protection, a youth protection agreement, which we've been working on for a number of years, whereby we'll have any issues regarding youth protection will be decided internally to the community. It won't be somebody in Longdale or whoever else. It's going to come back here. It'll be something that will be developed through community services, and then that's one step moving to have the decisions made here by our own youth protection director, and then next step would be have our own youth protection act and law, and then eventually, in a number of years, you have full control. And whether we are successful or when we're successful, or if we're not successful in the future, well, it's only us to blame. No, it's only us to be successful, or us to blame if it's not successful. And either we'll succeed together or we'll fail together. But I much rather try and push and push and push and have those decisions made in our community, by our community, but it'll be end up. It's always in the best interest of everybody.
Yeah. We have a little bit of time, and I guess one other issue I want to talk about, and is on a bigger level than even just Canada, like border crossing, because that's a big one. And I had Kenneth Deere in last week, and we were talking about some of the difficulty just with Iroquois nationals, getting into Israel. That affects our people day to day, but that's on a higher level.
Yeah, exactly. Border crossing is another big one, because obviously we as Mohawks we certainly don't agree with the imaginary line that they put there, and we have rights and treaties that supersede that line. But again, it's how do we create something or do something internally to the community that and supports the direction that we want to go, and displacing some of those laws. And and to cross over into the U.S., it's difficult because it ain't the same criteria as it is in Canada. Like this whole issue about blood quantum, for example.
Right.
That's still to this day a requirement of of Canada to get Social Security, to have free passage, or whatever. That wasn't something that was created by Kahnawake. It was created by the U.S. government. So how do we address those types of issues and ensure our people have free passage? And also, even the flip side of it, you know, and I think everybody will agree with this, is, you know, if I go to Plattsburgh for the weekend, or for a day for that matter, where I'm not entitled officially, according to Canadian law, I'm not entitled to bring back groceries or jeans or a pair of shoes or whatever. No, that should be our right. And that's where we should start looking at it and saying, well, no, if I go over for the day, I could bring back, whatever. If it's for my personal use and my personal consumption, why should I be stopped or charged at the border for for not being allowed to, or have to smuggle it, as they say?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to do that. It's clearly within,
because it doesn't belong there, according to our people.
Yeah, even for the issue of children crossing.
Yeah.
My son is coming in from Vancouver today, and he goes over the border with my sister all the time, and I write a letter for him stating that he's allowed to go over the border with my sister. Any questions or comments? Now I'm hearing that they're not accepting that anymore.
Yeah.
That I have to go physically bring him over the border in order for him to enjoy his vacation with my sister. And it's scary if they get caught somewheres, or they get into a fender bender, and, well, who's this kid?
Yeah.
Now he's being deported. He's going to be put in kid jail.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah,
I'm glad we had a chance to chat about it, because there's a lot. This is a big thing, not just locally, but, and it goes bigger than that. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. And Harry, I hope we weren't too hard on
No.
I think he's ready to go on the next one. Coming up next with the 1 o'clock news is Paul Grave. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Onagiwahi.
Ona.